A cursed mirror gave our principal the glow-up. The moment Veronica Lodge arrived on the scene, clad in a stunning red dress, the dynamic shifted entirely. She beamed at the handsome redhead. "Archie, I could listen to you all day." Betty, standing close to Archie, offered a slightly strained but equally earnest sentiment. "I could talk to you all day, Betty." But Archie, ever loyal to his dark-haired idol, made a quick exit. He dashed away with a happy skip, thinking to himself, someday when Ronnie is out of town. Betty watched him go, her expression falling from sweet to utterly dejected. In the next moment, Archie was enthusiastically linking arms with Veronica, hearts practically floating up around them as they strolled off together. Betty sighed deeply, leaning against a nearby fence, feeling the familiar sting of rivalry. She grumbled to herself, I feel like a stand-in for a star who never gets sick." Betty, her fists clenched and eyes blazing with frustration, muttered fiercely, "There's nothing I would do to get that red-headed rascal." As if summoned by her desperate plea, a cloud of pink smoke erupted beside a massive tree. Out of the haze, a sharply dressed, sinister man with pointed ears and a devilish smirk materialized, folding his hands. "That's my cue," he announced with a knowing look. Betty jumped back in surprise and fear. "Who are you?" she stammered. The dark-haired man stepped closer. "Nothing you wouldn't do? Just call me or Mr. Inferno. I just dropped in to grant your wish." Betty, quickly regaining her composure and focusing on the prize, asked tentatively, "You can get Archie for me?" Mr. Inferno grinned, his eyes gleaming. "For a price which you will pay at a later date." Completely blinded by the thought of Archie, Betty dismissed the warming instantly. "Price schmice. You've got yourself a deal, mister." Mr. Inferno pulled a cigarette from his pocket and, with a snap of his fingers that produced a small flame, lit it. His gaze was intense as he delivered a final, chilling line. "I hope you like warm climates, Betty." Betty looked puzzled by the implication. "Warm climates?" Mr. Inferno, a faint glow of orange light surrounding him, smiled broadly. "Someday, I will expect you to visit me in my home in what we might call the South." Betty, surprisingly, seemed thrilled. "Why not? I don't dig snow time," she said, returning his smile. Mr. Inferno leaned closer. "Team up with me, girl, and you'll never be cold again." Betty cheered. "Great, I like hot places." Mr. Inferno laughed, thinking to himself that this client was almost too willing to comply. He refocused, pushing Betty gently toward the street. "Now let's get to your end of the deal." Betty was already hurrying off. "Leave that to me. And don't bother to introduce me to Archie." Mr. Inferno followed close behind, his expression wry. "You see, I can only be seen by the people I help." Betty stopped, looking confused by the logistics of her new demonic arrangement. Betty, still a bit unsure, questioned Mr. Inferno. "Echoed, but how?" Mr. Inferno waved her concerns away as Archie approached. "Don't worry, just walk up to him." Betty took a deep breath. "Fly, Archie." The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Archie's eyes went wide, hearts flew around his head, and he looked utterly lovesick, as if struck by a Cupid's arrow. "Ah, Betty, you're lovely." Before another word could be spoken, Archie pulled her close, and they shared a long, passionate kiss. Archie gazed into her eyes, utterly devoted. "Darling, hold me close. I'm mad about you." He couldn't get enough, enveloping her in a tight hug. Betty, overjoyed but wanting to be sure, decided to test the magic. "Yeah, what about Veronica?" Archie blinked dismissively. "Veronica who?" Betty giggled, squeezing him back, completely triumphant. "You say the sweetest things, you little devil." Standing behind them, Mr. Inferno crossed his arms, visibly miffed. "Please, you insult me." Having secured Archie's devotion, Betty immediately moved to consolidate her victory. "Archie, you must tell Ronnie about us." Archie, utterly obedient, responded, "Whatever you say, dear." Betty emphasized her request. "Break it to her gently." He nodded happily. "Yes, sweetheart," and jogged off to face the music. He found Veronica quickly and delivered the crushing blow with a lovesick smile. "It's no use, Veronica. I'm mad about Betty." Veronica's face hardened. A literal wave of anger radiated from her as she demanded, "I'm getting pretty mad about her myself. Where is she?" Mr. Inferno watched the enraged Veronica approach, and his professional demeanor vanished instantly. Oh, here she comes." He turned to Betty, scrambling away toward the trees. "Oops, Ivergy got to go. You can handle her alone." Betty watched him run, utterly bewildered. "But why are you so nervous?" Mr. Inferno, halfway behind a tree, desperately tried to justify his retreat. "You can only be seen by the people you help." Betty just beamed, ready to face Veronica, but Mr. Inferno was already gone, hiding and stammering nervously. Yes, but..." Suddenly, Veronica spotted the nervous man lurking behind Betty. She pointed a furious finger. "Gasp, Mr. Inferno. So you're behind all this?" The terrified demon gulped, his eyes wide. "Will you see him too?" Betty looked confused, standing firmly. "He was helping me make my wishes come true." Veronica was livid, her voice shaking with righteous fury. Why that double-dealing little devil? She stepped toward Betty, who was now backing away. "How do you think I was always so successful with Archie?" The dreadful realization hit Betty like a thunderbolt, and both girls shouted the truth in unison. "He made the same pact with both of us." Mr. Inferno threw up his hands, desperately trying to calm the situation before the two enraged girls destroyed him. "Now, girls, relax. I'll fix everything. Let's talk this over." He knew he was already defeated. He stepped back, muttering frantically, "Ulp! The deal is off. Tempers like that are even too much for my place." Betty and Veronica charged, their combined rage a terrifying force. With a final, massive whoosh of smoke and flames, Mr. Inferno vanished, leaving the two rivals alone, their bargain broken and the chaos resolved. Veronica was starting to worry. Standing outside, she pondered, "I haven't seen Archie all week. I wonder if he's got himself another girl." She peeked inside a nearby room and heard Archie talking excitedly to Jughead, holding up a photograph. "Here's a good photo. Isn't she a beauty?" Archie gushed. Jughead agreed heartily. "She sure is, Archie. Ugh. Man, what lines." Veronica's heart sank as Archie added, "She's cheap to take out, too. Hardly costs a thing." Jughead patted his friend's shoulder. "Yeah, you're a lucky guy, Arch." Veronica turned away, wiping a tear, heartbroken. Archie, oblivious, looked proudly at the image. "You said it. Best little hot rod I ever owned." Later, Betty and Veronica met up at a local art exhibit titled Art for Art's Ache. "Look, Betty, one of Professor Lowe's paintings," Veronica exclaimed, gesturing toward a vibrant, chaotic, abstract piece. Ibi frowned. "I'm afraid I don't dig abstract art, Ronnie." Veronica, however, was enchanted. "I think it's wonderful. Just look at this perfect design, the balance of things." She sighed, her eyes full of appreciation. "It's such a pure expression. It creates such a beautiful mood." Suddenly, Professor Lowe, a portly gentleman with a grand mustache, walked up to the wall. "Ah, there it is," he announced, smoothly lifting the colorful canvas off the display to reveal the hilarious truth. The abstract masterpiece was simply the rag I use to wipe my brushes on. For a style maven like Veronica Lodge, fashion is everything. Stepping out in a truly bold look, a bright blue tailored top and red trousers covered in vibrant paisley swirls, she stands against a backdrop hinting at the iconic elegance of Paris. Veronica is on a style pilgrimage, carefully examining sketches of the latest trends. She studies a sleek, tailored sheath dress, a testament to Parisian chic, alongside a bold, geometric patterned skirt and turtleneck outfit. She also considers more casual striped ensembles and highly detailed statement jewelry. Veronica's taste is sophisticated and global, blending international catwalk inspiration with her own signature Riverdale flair. Veronica burst into the hallway, clutching her books, her face contorted with theatrical distress. "Betty, something awful has happened to me." Betty, standing nearby, perked up immediately, a hopeful smirk playing on her lips. She inwardly wondered if this was finally her moment. Had Archie seen the error of his ways? Had he given her the old heave-ho? But Veronica looked down at her own hands, frowning deeply. Everything sticks to my fingers like glue." Betty gave a small, surprised "oh" as she watched Veronica try to shake a loose paper off her fingertips. Betty couldn't resist a slight jab. "Including Archie as usual?" she asked sweetly. Veronica threw her hands up in exasperation, completely overwhelmed by her plight. Everything," she groaned. Veronica, still flustered, showed Betty the extent of her strange affliction. "I just can't let go of things. Look." As she spoke, the book she was attempting to drop finally peeled away from her fingers and fell to the floor. Betty watched the whole thing, raising a skeptical eyebrow. "My, that was a quick recovery." Veronica bent down to retrieve her book. "No, it only happens at certain times." Betty was intrigued. "Like when?" Veronica hedged. "Now and then." "There!" Betty pressed her. "You don't know what causes it." Veronica threw her hand up in exasperation. "Of course not. If I knew, I'd—" She decided a visual demonstration was necessary, walking over to the bulletin board and pressing a sheet of paper to the cork, then trying to pull her hand away, only for the paper to cling to her fingertips. I see what you mean." Veronica, in pure melodrama, finally broke down, struggling to handle the pile of papers stuck to her fingers. "All right, I'll have to confess." Betty looked on, waiting. Veronica lowered her voice dramatically. It only happens when I tell lies." Betty offered the simple, if impossible, solution. "So tell the truth all the time." Veronica winced, finding the advice utterly impractical. "That's easier to preach than practice." Just then, Archie sauntered up, flashing his famous grin. "Go hi, girls." He immediately addressed Veronica, his focus still entirely on Betty's academic skills. "Ron, would you mind if I took Betty away for a while? I want some help with my French homework." Veronica immediately launched into her practiced performance. She plastered on a fake smile, throwing a possessive arm around Betty's shoulders. "Why should I mind?" she declared with forced cheer. "Betty is my very best friend." Veronica, still trying to keep up the facade of the dutiful best friend, continued her strained speech about Betty. "I'd trust her with anything, But the instant the lie left her lips, Betty recoiled in pain, crying, "Ouch!" as stars erupted around her head, the physical manifestation of Veronica's dishonesty. Veronica gave up the act immediately. She sighed dramatically to Archie. "All right, I'd rather see you flunk than leave you alone with her for a minute." Betty, rubbing her head in the aftermath, quipped, "Ow, ouch, and they say the truth hurts." Veronica quickly hurried away, consumed by panic, reflecting on her sticky situation. "I wish I could pass this affliction to someone. This could mean a lot of trouble." Just then, Miss Grundy materialized, holding a paper and wearing a severe frown. "You didn't pass in your homework today, Veronica." Veronica quickly stammered an excuse. "Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Grundy. It slipped my mind." Miss Grundy narrowed her eyes, holding up the paper. You didn't by chance copy this after class?" Veronica vigorously defended herself, the lie flying out naturally. "Why, of course not, Miss Grundy." Miss Grundy insisted, demanding the paper. "Well, are you going to give it to me, or aren't you?" Veronica tried desperately to hand the paper over, but it clung fast to her hand, pulling a stack of surrounding papers with it. Miss Grundy gasped in shock as a paper hurricane formed around Veronica's hand. Finally, frustrated by the sticky consequences of her dishonesty, Veronica threw in the towel. "All right," I lied. "I copied it from Betty." Miss Grundy grabbed Veronica firmly by the arm. "Come along, young lady." Veronica found herself in the principal's office, where Miss Grundy reported the transgression to Mr. Weatherby, emphasizing the shocking audacity of the student. "And then, Mr. Weatherby, she brazenly lied about it?" Mr. Weatherby looked grimly at Veronica, who was now tearfully clutching the evidence. "Veronica, do you promise never to copy homework again?" Veronica, still sobbing, couldn't quite force out the entire false vow. The paper stuck to her hand, refusing to let go. Veronica sniffled, unable to complete her full promise. Mr. Weatherby looked at her sternly as she finally admitted, "I'll probably do the same thing if I think I can get away with it." The principal removed his glasses, aghast. "I can't tell you how shocked I am to hear that," he exclaimed, wagging a finger in her direction. Growing more dramatic, Mr. Weatherby rose from his chair, puffing out his chest. "Do you think I could have achieved my position in life if I cheated as a boy?" he roared, pointing to himself. He slammed his hand down on the desk with force. "Never! Even as a child, I told nothing but the truth. It's the only way." He leaned toward Veronica, attempting to look solemn and wise. "Resist temptation as I do, my child. It's the only path to peace of mind." Veronica looked utterly dumbfounded by his self-righteousness. Betty and Veronica met on the sidewalk for the start of another day at Riverdale High. Betty, ever enthusiastic, showed off her newest purchase. "Hi, Ron. Do you like my new jacket?" Veronica gave the jacket a quick, critical once-over and replied instantly, delivering the blow with a shrug. Frankly, no." Betty blinked, genuinely hurt by the blunt refusal. "You don't? You don't?" Veronica was about to elaborate on her fashion crime. "Ooh, it's two." But before she could finish, Archie walked up behind her, taking in Betty's bright, sporty look. "Say, new jacket, eh, Bets?" Archie beamed. "Real keen." Veronica looked completely mortified, realizing she had nearly insulted the new jacket right in front of the one person whose opinion she valued above all others. Suddenly, Veronica found herself completing Archie's thought, speaking against her better judgment. Archie was describing the jacket. "It fits so W." And Veronica blurted out, "Badly." Archie, wide-eyed, stared at Veronica, dropping a dollar bill in shock. "Huh. Oh, yeah? Why, yeah?" He tried to cover his mistake by pretending he meant the jacket was badly fitted. Veronica, now trying to agree with Archie's compliment, made another attempt to lie. "The color is wrong." Archie looked confused. Like I said, wrong color," he stammered, unsure if he had said that. Veronica tried a third lie, "and it's much too short." Archie, desperate to go along with the girl he admired, agreed readily. "Yeah, too short." Betty just smiled brightly, clearly amused by the frantic exchange. "Ronnie, that's amazing," she said, knowing Veronica was twisting herself into knots to avoid telling the truth about how much she hated the jacket. Veronica looked around in desperation, realizing the consequences of her sticky fingers were about to be revealed. "I couldn't even see your lips move," she whispered dramatically to Archie. She knew that any more lies and she would be physically stuck to Betty. And as she thought that thought, the item she was carrying, a yellow book, fell and stuck immediately to Betty's heel. The tension between the rivals ratcheted up, quickly involving the object of their affection. Veronica, angry at Betty's subtle digs, confronted her. "Are you insinuating that Archie is a dummy?" Betty didn't back down. "If the shoe fits, that's your size, isn't it, blockhead?" Archie, desperate to defend himself but completely missing the point of the argument, insisted, "I think for myself." Betty seized the opportunity to declare, "I'll have you know, Archie thinks for himself." Veronica, realizing her deepest unspoken suspicion was coming true, watched in horror as Archie, standing there, repeated whatever the last person said. "He doesn't have to repeat everything I say." Veronica shouted in pure frustration. Archie, still trapped in the loop, immediately echoed her. "I don't have to repeat everything she says." Veronica was absolutely livid, screaming, "Will you shut up?" Archie slapped a hand over his mouth, shocked as his own response began to escape. "Will I shut? Oops." Realizing he was literally trapped, repeating every command he heard, Archie dropped to a knee in a desperate plea for escape. "Yulp. Bye, love. See you later." He scrambled away, abandoning the scene, leaving Betty and Veronica to deal with the chaos. The girls continued walking, the air charged with mutual frustration, even with Archie gone. Betty smiled sweetly, enjoying her small victory. "He liked my jacket." Veronica, responding with a shout, trying to deny the obvious truth that Archie had been instantly charmed. "He's got poor taste?" He merely shrugged. "Bully." That confirmation was too much for Veronica. "Ooh, oh." "She makes me so mad," she cried out, slamming her foot down in frustration. Her anger was becoming a physical burden. Betty, noticing the sticky symptoms getting worse, finally interrupted the fight. Ronnie, I've thought it over." Veronica paused, looking distraught. Then, taking a deep breath and forcing herself to be truthful about her feelings, she offered a genuine, albeit rare, apology. She smiled, relieved to finally speak plainly. "I come back to apologize." "Well," she admitted, "I was just acting childish. Actually, I admire you very much. I would like to be just like you." Betty was completely taken aback by this sudden, profound shift in tone. She stared at her rival, amazed. Betty smiled, thrilled by Veronica's sudden sincerity. "And from now on, I'm going to practice being like you, too." Veronica, enjoying the moral high ground and the lack of stickiness, replied smugly, "It's nice to have a worthwhile hobby." The next day, Jughead approached Veronica, looking at her new outfit with curiosity. "Have you seen Betty? She's getting more like you every day." Veronica, dressed in a tight yellow top and a striped blue skirt, preened. "It shows already?" She watched Betty walking away, dressed in a red jacket and black skirt. Jughead added, "It's nice to see the girl bettering herself." Veronica decided to test her new, truthful resolve. "Do you like my new jacket, Archiekins?" she asked sweetly. Archie, still programmed to mimic, looked at her outfit and tried to respond truthfully, or rather honestly reflecting the opinion of his last interaction, Betty. He tried to speak the truth she was now trying to embody, kindness. He launched into a lengthy, saccharine compliment, only to realize the curse had somehow transferred. Archie, standing up on one leg, began to levitate slightly as his words kept pouring out, forcing him to stick to the ceiling. "It's lovely, Lambkins, and so are you. You're gorgeous, charming, beautiful, brilliant, sweet, lovable," he gushed, completely airborne. Veronica watched in horror as Archie, now hovering a few feet in the air, shouted his endless compliments. "Oh!" she gasped. Betty and Veronica were carrying a massive, oddly shaped package labeled "Glass Handle with Care" up a set of stairs. Betty immediately understood what it was. "You mean it's one of those crazy amusement park mirrors? Where did you get it?" Veronica smiled with delight. "At an auction. I haven't seen it, but it's guaranteed to be in good shape." She was ecstatic about her new purchase, anticipating the fun it would bring. "It'll be a million laughs at our party in the gym next week. It might even improve the looks of some of the characters we've got around here." The girls carefully carried the large package into the storeroom, so Veronica directed, "Let's take it into the storeroom." Once inside, they eagerly tore the paper wrapping off the mirror. "Hurry up, I can hardly wait to see it," Veronica chirped as the paper ripped away. Betty was the first to gasp at her reflection in the newly revealed funhouse mirror. Her lower body was wildly distorted, making her look ridiculously bottom-heavy. "Oh no!" she cried, aghast. Veronica, who hadn't yet looked, approached the glass excitedly. Let me see. She saw her own reflection, which had elongated her body and given her a massive, toothy grin. She burst into laughter. "Isn't that a scream?" she roared with delight. Betty, trying to recover from the initial shock of her own appearance, pointed to Veronica's reflection, which was still comically stretched out. "Oh, Ronnie, look at why you..." Now, Veronica looked over at Betty, whose reflection was still spherical. Then she looked back at herself, realizing that both of their reflections looked ridiculous. "Eek!" she shrieked. Then, recovering her natural sass, she countered, "How about you?" Betty suddenly understood the bizarre reality of their situation, leaning in to examine Veronica's bulbous reflection. We've turned into W, what we saw in the mirror." Veronica groaned, now looking squat and rotund like her mirror image. "Ugh, how horrible. What sort of evil thing have I bought?" Betty quickly suggested a fix. Maybe if we tilted it, we could get a better distortion." Veronica agreed instantly. "It's worth a try." They tilted the mirror forward, creating a new angle of reflection. "There, shall we have a go at it?" Betty asked nervously. Veronica swallowed hard. Let's." They stepped back to check their new shapes. "Shall we?" Veronica shrieked. Now, Betty's body was a rounded, inflated form, while Veronica's was stretched vertically, giving her an impossibly long neck and thin frame. Betty looked at her new shape, sighing dramatically. Sob, not much of an improvement. Mr. Weatherby walked past the open door of the storeroom and stopped short, utterly horrified at the sight of the girls' distorted forms. Egad, what have you girls done to yourselves? Betty, who was now plump and round, pointed to the object of their distress. It's this evil carnival mirror, Mr. Weatherby. You become what you see in it. The principal scoffed, marching toward the mirror with an air of absolute authority. Nonsense. Nobody believes in black magic anymore. Mr. Weatherby stepped right in front of the mirror, unaware of the magic it held, and instantly his reflection warped him into a tall, thin, handsome man. He gasped in surprise at his elegant new self. S.A., that's quite a piece of glass. Just as he admired his reflection, Miss Grundy appeared in the doorway, seeing her handsome colleague. Her eyes instantly filled with hearts. Va-voom, if you'll pardon the expression, she sighed dreamily. The transformed principal looked back at her with a charming smile, fully accepting his new look. Like it, Miss Grundy? The now tall and handsome Mr. Weatherby addressed Miss Grundy, beaming. Take a look in that mirror. You might be in for a pleasant surprise. Betty and Veronica rushed forward to stop her. Don't do it, Miss Grundy. It changes your shape. But it did to us. Miss Grundy, utterly smitten with the transformed principal, disregarded the girl's frantic warnings. She stepped forward, gesturing dramatically. After all, what have I got to lose? She stared critically at her own frumpy reflection in the normal glass next to the funhouse mirror. She turned back to the principal. Not that I believe you for 1 minute, she said. But she took a tentative step in front of the funhouse mirror and gasped. In an instant, the mirror morphed her into a sleek, glamorous figure with a cinched waist and flowing curves. Oop, she breathed. The handsome Mr. Weatherby winked at her. Va-voom? Right back at you. He then offered his arm, utterly charmed. Come along, doll. Let's have ourselves a cozy conference in my office. Miss Grundy giggled, linking her arm in his. What on, handsome? Veronica, still elongated, looked at the plump Betty with resignation. Sigh, I'm happy for them, Bee, but what are we going to do? Betty, ever the optimist, held up a small hammer. There might be one chance. After all evil should be destroyed, let her fly. She swung the hammer and smashed the funhouse mirror with a burst. Immediately, the magical transformation was reversed. Mr. Weatherby and Miss Grundy, who had been enjoying a cozy moment of newfound affection in the office, kissing deeply, suddenly snapped back to their normal shapes. Mr. Weatherby looked down at his sudden paunch and Miss Grundy at her short stature, both gasping in horror. Egad, somebody punctured our dream. Betty stood proudly beside the broken glass, restored to her fit shape. Ooh, it worked. We're back to normal. Veronica, equally back to her true, elegant form, looked dismayed. Yes, but we're not the only ones. Mr. Weatherby and Miss Grundy, furious at having their fleeting moment of attractiveness ruined, immediately chased the girls, shaking their fists. Oh well, you can't please everyone, Veronica quipped as she and Betty ran for their lives across the school grounds.